He ran into the league with a chip the size of a Midwest sky, a kid from Western Michigan with eyes on bigger lights. And at 24, Marshawn Kneeland's story stopped so suddenly it left a city asking a question it can't quite answer. There's a moment every athlete carries in private, a memory of the first time the game felt possible. For Kneeland, it was different. People's clips stitched into one highlight reel. Sack dances in college, a steady climb of 27.5 sacks over 5 seasons at Western Michigan, a second-round call with the Cowboys in 2024. From practice fields to locker rooms, he built himself into a professional. 14 tackles as a rookie, first NFL sack in week 1 of 2025, and that strange, electric joy of scooping up a blocked punt and taking it to paid dirt. Those plays are the easy postcards, flashes that show us how he lived on the field. And yet the hardest part of reporting a life is that the ledger we record, stats, snaps, starts, is only one frame of a wider film. This week's headlines are short and sharp. The Dallas Cowboys announced his passing. The NFL released a statement offering support to the team. The family and agent issued words that tremble with private loss. Police in Frisco say they are investigating his death as an apparent suicide. Officers responding to a vehicle pursuit and a welfare check later located Kneeland and found him deceased. The investigation remains active, and the medical examiner will make the official determination. These are the facts public enough to read aloud and raw enough to disrupt a locker room's sense of safety. The quotes that circle in these hours are both professional and heartbreakingly human. From his agent, "I am shattered." A sentence that reads like a line ripped from a private conversation. From the team, Marshawn was a beloved teammate, a corporate phrasing that hides the real ache of overnight texts and empty locker stalls. Friends and family ask for privacy. Teammates, coaches, and the whole league are left to balance ritual, moments of silence, taped helmets, the communal gesture of grief, with the slow, quiet work of trying to understand how someone who had climbed so high could vanish from view. There is, inevitably, a public impulse to look for patterns. Kneeland's trajectory was, by all visible measures, the kind that convinces scouts and coaches. Production in college, draft capital, flashes of promise in the pros. He made plays last week, the kind of plays young defenders dream of. And he had been part of a franchise that both celebrates its stars and expects them to shoulder the burdens of public life. That tension between performance and personhood is what this story forces us to stare at. Professional sports compress life into a series of public moments. The private moments that come between them rarely show up on the stat sheet. How do you tell a story like this without turning it into a highlight reel or a social media trending topic? You start by naming a few truths. 1, grief looks different in locker rooms than it does in living rooms. It is slower. It is louder in small ways. A trainer's quiet, a coach's clipped voice, a captain staring at a helmet he no longer wants to put on. 2, public statements, however sincere, are scaffolding. The real work is done in calls, visits, and the small rituals of mourning that won't make the morning shows. 3, no amount of footage or praise can rebuild a life. The best we can do is hold the memory gently and treat the hard questions with care. There's also a systemic conversation that follows moments like this. Mental health resources have improved in professional sports, but access and stigma still shape choices. Players live under a pressure that is both gilded and isolating. Media days, performance clauses, the constant measurement of worth. When a man who carved his way into the league passes in a way that looks self-inflicted, teams and leagues again face the question of how to better detect pain that hides behind strength. It's a conversation that sits uncomfortably between policy meetings and locker room trust. But policy discussions can feel distant when you're sitting in the bleachers or scrolling your timeline at midnight. The personal image is simpler and perhaps truer. Kneeland as the kid who chose a dream and walked into it. Kneeland as the teammate who picked up a falling ball and shoved it across the goal line. A small triumph that, for a few seconds, felt like proof. Kneeland as someone loved by a partner, a family, and a circle that will now reconfigure in the shape of absence. We owe the family and the girlfriend, Catalina, privacy and a margin of respect. We owe the team a chance to grieve without turning every moment into a soundbite. And we owe ourselves the humility to stop pretending we can read the full script of someone else's life from their public chapter. Reporting should be honest, it should not be sensational. Remembering should be humane, it should not be invasive. There will be vigils and statements and the slow accretion of remembrances. There will be teammates who try to translate a locker room language of grief into something younger players can understand. There will be coaches and counselors who sit with family members and try to stitch together what happened and what could happen next to prevent another loss. That work is messy and necessary and small in public, but immense in private. For the audience, for fans who watched him make plays, and for strangers who are hearing his name for the first time, the right response is not to speculate wildly. It is to hold a space. It is to remember an athlete as more than an allocation of minutes and sacks. It is to understand that behind every helmet there are relationships, vulnerabilities, and stories that never made the highlight reel. If there is any line that might hold this moment, it is not a stat or a soundbite. Picture an empty locker with a single jersey hung a little straighter than the rest, a pair of cleats tied and waiting. The curve of absence there is what we will keep returning to. The sport will keep producing plays and pages, but some stories ask us to pause and to be quieter than the broadcast. Marshawn Kneeland's chapter in the NFL was brief, but it was real. He fought for his place, he made people in a stadium feel something, and he is now gone in a way that will leave echoes in a family's house, in a lover's texts, in a locker room that will take a long time to feel whole again. If this story leaves you with one small command, let it be this: do not let a public sadness pass without a private act. Check on someone. Call a friend. If you or someone you know is struggling, reach out to the resources available. Be present, be steady, and be human. Because behind every jersey is a life, and grieving that life is the most honest play we can make. This is a tragic night for the Dallas Cowboys and everyone who followed Marshawn Kneeland's rise. He was just 24, a young man whose life was defined by hard work, by the grind from small-town fields to big-time stadium nights. Tonight, we remember the player, the teammate, and the person behind the pads. Marshawn Kneeland came to the NFL with clear purpose. A standout at Western Michigan, he turned into a force off the edge, compiling 27.5 sacks across 5 college seasons and earning second-round draft status in 2024. He arrived in Dallas as a project with pedigree, and he paid that investment back with effort on and off the field. As a rookie, he appeared in 11 games, showing flashes of impact, hustle, power, and a motor that never quit. This season, he continued to grow, appearing in 7 games and delivering moments that teammates still talk about. A first NFL sack in Week 1, and just days ago, his first NFL touchdown after recovering a blocked punt in the end zone. The Cowboys, the NFL, and Kneeland's agent all released statements tonight expressing the same raw sorrow. The team called him a beloved teammate and asked for privacy for his girlfriend, Catalina, and his family as they grieve. His agent spoke in a voice many of us share right now, stunned, shattered, and deeply pained. In those words, you hear not just the loss of a player, but the loss of a friend, a colleague, a young life taken before its time. Details of the night are still emerging. Local authorities in Frisco say they are investigating as a possible suicide. Police were on the scene after a call for a welfare check and later located a vehicle involved in a pursuit. When officers were searching, they were informed that Kneeland had expressed suicidal thoughts. Investigators say they found